Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Nicole Hurley-Moore joining me today. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So a little bit about Nicole. Nicole grew up in Melbourne and has travelled extensively while living her life through the romance of books. Nicole is a full-time writer who lives in the Central Highlands of Victoria with her family where they live in the peaceful surrounds of a semi-rural town. She is the author of the immensely popular novels McAllen's Run, Hartley's Grange, Country Roads, White Gum Creek, Lawson's Bend, The McAllister Legacy, and Summer at Kangaroo Ridge. So I think Summer at Kangaroo Ridge is her latest novel. I think you can just see, and I can see you've got a copy of it behind you as well.
I have. Oh, wrong way.
Whoops.
Oh, well,
There you go. And I wanted to mention as well, I'd never read any of your books before until I read Summer at Kangaroo Ridge and really, really loved it. Totally recommend it to everybody. It was a great read.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy you liked it.
Yeah, no, it was great. And also we have a few international viewers as well, so a really great way as well to get a taste of rural Australia.
Mm, yep.
So wondering if you want to start off by telling us a bit about Summer at Kangaroo Ridge.
Well, I thought of the idea of that I wanted to tell a story of a family, and I thought we needed something because the last couple of years have been a bit difficult for
Mm,
everyone,
mm,
and so I wanted something a little bit uplifting, but also to show the bonds of what a family is,
mm,
which was the main thing.
mm,
And then I set my stories that they're always sort of based on the area in which I live, which is rural, you know, central Victoria.
mm.
But I always make fictional towns. So
Yeah,
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 that way I can manipulate the town
yeah.
just the way I want it.
And because I haven't read any of your books before, apart from this one, just interested to know, are all of your books standalone?
No, the first two, the first two were sort of linked. The
Yeah,
second two were linked, and then the others were
the
standalones.
standalones, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And could you tell us what was the first idea you had for Summer at Kangaroo Ridge?
The first idea was, as I said, there was the thing of the family,
Yeah,
and yeah, and also there was the romance. I was flicking through some magazines and I sort of saw some sort of rustic romancy
mm,
sort of. I think they were like wedding picture type things, and I thought, ooh,
mm.
and, and then yeah, so it sort of just grew from there.
Yeah.
Um, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got a few people watching. I just wanted to mention to the people watching that thanks to Alan and Unwin, if you have a question for Nicole, please type it in comments and I can read it out and you'll have a chance to win a copy of Summer at Kangaroo Ridge. So please, I'll look out for your comments. Just wondering if you could tell us about how you got into writing. Is it something you always thought you'd get into, and maybe what were you doing before you were writing?
Well, I was really an avid reader from when I was very, very young. So I've always liked books. I ended up working in libraries for quite a few years,
Mm,
but I'd always wanted to write as well. But you know, like when you start and you think, well, that's no good, throw that one away and try again, and also trying to get up enough courage to actually submit it to places.
mm.
So I just played around with it for quite a few years, and it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I started
And I wanted
really
to mention,
concentrating and trying to get something published.
and how hard or easy was it to get that first book published?
Oh, it's terribly hard. I mean, there's stories every now and then where
Mm,
somebody will write their debut book and it gets picked up, and that's fantastic. Um, and that's lovely, but it doesn't happen that often. A lot of times you write things and they get rejected a lot.
mm. And could you tell us a bit more about your story of getting published?
Well, I actually, the first time I was published was by a very small American publisher, and it was just for a novella. And it was actually medieval. I started.
Oh, really? So quite different from.
Quite different, yeah, because I'm medieval girl, really.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And I did it at uni and everything, and I always thought, no, I'm going to write historical stories, which I started doing. And this publisher, which is now very much defunct, picked it up, which was lovely, and it was like the very first stepping stone. So I did a few books with them and that, and then I did a Victorian book and it was with Harlequin, Mills and Boot Escape.
Yeah,
they're digital, and but it's still historical sort of stuff. And I just had this idea one day. It was sounds really great, but a conversation popped in my head about two guys arguing, and one guy says, yeah, well, she's always going to remember me because I'm the one that broke her heart. And the second guy says, yeah, but I'm the one that put it back together. Okay. And I thought, now what can I do with that? That's not medieval. So, and I just got this idea for a story. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to sit down and write it because it sort of wouldn't leave me alone. And that was the very first McCallum's Run. So after I finished writing it, I thought, well, that's all well and good, but what am I going to do with this now?
Yeah.
And then I was looking on Facebook, and I thought, I'll see if there's, any rural romance type things, and I found one, and at the very top was from one of the editors of Allen and Unwin saying, hey, has anybody got any rural romance? And I thought, send it in, but nothing's going to happen. Besides that, I'm medieval girl. And they accepted it.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. And you haven't looked back since.
No.
Have you ever wanted to maybe dabble a bit again in medieval?
Oh, I still dabble.
You do?
I dabble, but yeah. I'd like to do both.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Hasn't gone away. No.
I've got a few questions from some people watching. Wendy actually commented before you said that you always make up a town, even though it is sort of set around where you live. She says that she thinks it can be a bit off-putting if you use a real town in the story. So she thinks that's good that you do that.
Oh, thanks. What I sometimes do is, even though I'm making the story in fiction, I'll say, well, oh, where are they? Oh, they've just gone to Bendigo.
Yeah,
So
they might go to, but they're not actually set there.
So,
Excuse
me, I'm just...
No, that's okay. And Belinda wonders if you have a favourite childhood book.
Oh, favourite childhood book. I have lots. I really do. I loved lots of fairy tales. That's how I started off. I think most of us do with fairy tales, and then into myths and legends. But things like The Owl Service by Alan Garner, that was one of my favourites as a kid. I don't know if you know that.
That's one I haven't heard of.
He's an English writer, and what he used to do is he used English myths and legends and then spin them into modern day children's stories.
Okay.
So, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And Wendy wonders if you have the whole plot of the novel in mind when you start, or does it just develop as you go on?
Okay, so when I first get the idea, I sit down and I do what I call as a plot run. And so really briefly, like in about 4 or 5 pages, I'll sit down and do a really basic outline. And a lot of times there isn't even characters' names, just, that sort of thing. And then I'll sit down and I'll try and beef it out and plan it chapter by chapter, scene by scene. And but there's still room for it to grow and breathe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And what about research? Do you do much research for your books?
It depends on what sort of book I'm writing. Like if it's medieval, then yeah, lots. But no, I mean, I have done research for some of these books.
What about Summer at Kangaroo Ridge? Could you tell us
Summer at Kangaroo Ridge? Well, I did. I looked into like wedding places and things like that. I have been known to crawl through shearing sheds and stuff like that, but you know.
And could you tell us a bit about what you like reading yourself, and maybe if there's something you've been reading lately you want to share with us?
Yeah, I like quite a lot of fiction. I generally read fiction. I really love whodunits, and I love historicals. But I have some books. Shall I get them?
Yep.
Okay.
We always love getting recommendations, so I'm glad you've brought some books along.
Well, I've just reread these because I love them. It's,
oh yes, yep.
Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Kwan. But then there's the sequel.
Yeah, I haven't read the sequel. Is the sequel's good as well?
Oh, such fun.
Yeah.
And then there's the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I said, I've just reread those.
Yeah.
And I love them. And the other thing, and I haven't read this one yet, I'm about to, but I've read all her others.
Yeah. I've heard that one's good.
I love Kerry Greenwood's work. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for those recommendations. We always love, oh, there they go.
There they go. Well, we didn't want them anyway, did we?
And what about what you're working on now?
I've just started working on another book in Kangaroo Ridge.
Okay. So, I was going to ask.
Maybe this one, and maybe not a standalone. Yeah,
well, I was going to ask that because the way that Summer at Kangaroo Ridge was written, I felt that you could have made it into a series. So glad to hear some of the characters are going to be back.
Oh yeah. Yep. So yes, so they'll be linked. We're looking at other members of the family.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. I'll be looking out for that then. So when you first started Summer at Kangaroo Ridge, did you know that you would have another one after, or no? No,
it wasn't until about halfway through, and I just realised how much I really enjoyed the family.
Yeah, and it's quite a big family, and I'm sure there's lots more to go into with all the family.
Yeah. So so I was tossing up which one to start with. Okay. And I've gone with my favourite for the next one, so we'll see.
Okay, sounds very good. So does that mean there could be more than one more after this?
Well, yeah, yeah. And as I said, I usually don't write series.
Yeah, but why not if it's
Yeah, I really like them.
Yeah, and I'm sure, have you had readers come to you and say, would there be more of Kangaroo Ridge?
Yes, quite a few.
Yeah,
so that's also sort of made me think, well, yeah, maybe I should.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm wondering as well, this is probably a hard question, but would you have a favourite character out of all of your books?
Well, out Kangaroo Ridge or out of all of them?
Out of all of your books.
I have two. One of them was a recluse, which was in one of the books. Yes, I can't remember my own books. Isn't that terrible? It's shocking, isn't it? No, it wasn't those. Where are we? Thanks, Colin. Here he is. I found him.
Okay.
So, White Gum Creek, yeah. And he was a recluse. He'd had a tragedy happen to him, and he actually briefly appeared in the prior book, the previous book, and And my aunt actually said, but you can't leave the poor darling without a story. He needs a
Yeah.
happy end. He's got to have something. What are you going to do about it? So I wrote his story. So I have to admit that he's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
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 And with so many characters, and you've written quite a lot of books, do you have friends and family wanting you to use their names on characters, or do you try and steer clear from that?
No, they don't.
They don't?
No. I do ask for opinions. What do you think? And I come up with usually really unhelpful answers. So we don't.
How do you usually go about choosing your characters' names?
Okay, so with that, I sit down and I look at popular names for this, for this year and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I often look at what the name means and how that works with the character I'm writing. And I mean, that's probably silly because nobody's going to go, oh, that means such and such, but at least I'll know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure some readers think that. Yeah.
So.
And your covers, like I've seen a few of your covers and they all seem to have like a photo of someone on the front. When you see that person on your cover, do you always think, oh yeah, that's just how I thought they'd be? Or sometimes do you get a surprise when you see them?
Well, usually what happens that they ask me what the character, how I saw the character, and a lot of times I actually have pictures.
Okay, so you do,
and that sort of stuff, and I'll say sort of like this.
Yeah.
So we don't usually get the pictures I found, of course, but they try to have the same sort of feel about them.
Yeah. So that's interesting what you say about the pictures. Do you sort of find pictures of people as you're writing to sort of get a feel of what they're like, or?
Yeah, I do a lot of things. I do story Bibles for all my stories, but particularly if I'm going to do like a series. So I get lots of photographs and pictures of people, of places, and, you know, that sort of stuff, just to get a feel so I can develop not only the characters, but the, you know, the countryside and the town itself.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Wendy says, with your medieval stories, have they also got some romance in them as well, or do they follow a different path?
Oh, no, I write in romance.
Yeah,
I do.
So they're in romance as well.
I'm a hopeless or hopeful romantic, and I like everybody to have a nice ending, or at least an okay one.
And in Summer at Kangaroo Ridge, there are some quite tragic things in the story. How do you go when you're writing emotional scenes? Do you find them draining, or is there something you need to do to get into the mood to write those sorts of things?
I think even though the things that happen in the novels haven't happened to me, I think it's like anything. You can remember a time you were sad, or when you lost somebody, or they cheated on you, or whatever. And I think you pull in those emotions to connect with what you're trying to tell. Yeah.
And Sharon wonders if your family members read your books.
Okay, my husband reads all my books because he has to edit them for me.
Okay.
I get him to read them before I send them off to the publisher. And then, yes, my daughter will sometimes proofread some stuff for me and things like that.
No, that's good. Kelly wonders if you've got an author who inspired you to become an author.
Nora Roberts.
Okay, yeah.
Because she's just brilliant.
She is.
I think the amount of books she manages to write each year is just amazing.
And the different genres as well, isn't it? Yeah. With the different notes.
And they're such fun to read and very engaging, I find.
Yeah. And Sharon wonders, how important do you think book reviews are, and do you ever read them?
Book reviews are very important, and I'm always very, very happy and grateful for people to write reviews. Hint. But I have to admit that I don't tend to read negative ones.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes they're fine. It's just like, no, this isn't my cup of tea, and you go, that's fine.
Yeah, well, not everyone's going to like your books anyway,
No.
are they?
Well, if we all liked the same thing, the place would be a really boring, grey sort of world.
Exactly. And Kim says, before you were telling us about how you planned and found like the characters and things like that, she wonders if you've always planned the same in as much detail, or has that evolved over your writing career?
No, it's always been pretty much the same.
It has, yeah.
Yeah. I really like to plan because I find it's like following a trail or a map. Because sometimes when you're writing, you can get a bit stuck. Things aren't working so well, and you're thinking, oh, well, what do I do here? And you've got nothing. But if you have like a plot or a line, you can sort of follow it and think, oh no, I can work my way out of this. And sort of gives you somewhere to head to. Yeah.
And when you start, do you know how at the end what the ending's going to be like?
Yeah.
At the start, you do?
Yeah. Actually, not always, but for a lot of them, I've actually, by the time I've done that very first plotting, the story run, I pretty much know what the ending's going to be. So it's just a matter of getting there.
And when you think about a successful writer, what does that look like for you?
I don't know. I mean, somebody that's privileged enough to keep being able to tell their stories, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, being successful is different for everyone.
Exactly.
And,
yeah. And when you're writing, do you have any writing rituals?
Yes, I do. I burn scented candles.
Do you have a favourite one?
Yeah, it sort of gets you into the zone, and I really like that. And with each new book, the desk is really, really tidy, but by the end of it, it's complete and utter disaster.
And any favourite snacks or drinks while you're writing?
I drink iced coffee and green tea. That's about it. Yeah. And sometimes I listen to music, but sometimes not.
Yeah, what sort of music do you like listening to?
I like K-pop.
Yeah, okay.
I love K-pop.
Yeah, that gets you in the mood for some rural romance writing.
Well, yeah, why not?
No, it sounds good. Wendy wonders if you meet up or communicate with other Australian romance writers and bounce ideas off with them.
We have a group, though we haven't met for a while because of, things that have happened. But yes, we have a group of Central Victorian writers. There's a few of us. There's about 8 of us now that meet up. And we've got historical Australian romance writer, fantasy, urban fantasy, science fiction, a couple of Regency ladies, and another rural. Her debut book's coming soon. So yes.
Okay, so quite a big variety.
Yeah, so we don't particularly bounce off ideas. Talk a lot about shoes, but shopping. But but if there's a problem or something,
you can talk about it. And when writing a series, how do you find you keep things fresh for both your readers and yourself?
Well, you can't. You have to do that, otherwise everything gets boring, particularly for yourself. You don't want to end up writing the same book.
Exactly.
So I think it's trying to be realising and trying to really get into the character and look at it from a different perspective. Like with the thing with Summer at Kangaroo Ridge, I started writing it, and I'd written something, I can't remember, it was like 6 or 8 chapters in from somebody else's perspective. And the story just wasn't working.
Yeah.
So I had to scrap it, and I redid it, and I wrote Tamara as our main character, because she wasn't when I first started. So sometimes you just have to think.
So yeah,
it's not working. It's not, you know. And by doing that then and changing the main character, I found that the story flowed really quickly, and I wrote it down quite quickly, and it was a lot of fun to write. Whereas if I'd stayed with the storyline I'd started with, it was sort of a bit like pulling teeth. So.
Yeah. And Geraldine said she listened to your audiobook, which she really enjoyed, and she wonders if you have a say in who narrates your audiobooks. I've
only got 2 audiobooks, and the same ladies narrated both of them. They sent me some samples for the very first one, and I was really impressed by the lady that did it. And so with this one, they asked me, you know, was I happy? And I'm saying, oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
We'll have the same lady.
Yeah. No, that's good if you find one that you're happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's really important too. You have to get somebody that gets the tone of the book across.
Yeah, and I've found myself sometimes I've listened to an audiobook, and even though I've sort of really liked the story, the person narrating it's really put me off the way that they've said, like maybe spoken in the character's accent or something like that, and yeah, so it can really make or break a book sometimes.
Yeah, it can. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, so far, what's been your favourite part of your publishing journey?
Well, I like lots of it, but I think that the biggest kick was that very first time. Believe me, it doesn't get old, but the very first time that I saw my first book on the shelf in Big W. Yeah. Yeah. It was like, well, it actually happened. You know, that was.
Yeah. And what about writers or readers festivals? If you now things are starting to happen more in that, are you someone who goes and does those sorts of things? Have you got anything planned coming up?
I have a couple of little things that actually aren't rural romance related, but I'm doing a series. I'm doing a couple of talks on medieval, but fairy tales, and the dark side of fairy tales, not so much the sanitized ones we have now. It's a couple of at a local festival here.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's good that authors are able to get out and readers are able to come and see authors now.
Yeah, I did a couple of library talks. I have one more coming up in the next month, and it's just lovely to see everybody again. It really is. You know, I've missed it so much. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. It's been great chatting to you. Just wondering, before you go, do you want to tell people how they can keep in touch with you?
Oh, yes. Jump over to my Facebook author page, just under my name, and you'll find me one way or another. Or you can go onto my website and join my mailing list, my newsletter. Though I have to say, it's really infrequent. And where some people are so good at it, we're lucky to get maybe 4 a year. Okay.
But I'm sure it's worth it when it comes.
No, I'm not so sure.
Well, thanks so much, and I'm really recommending Summer at Kangaroo Ridge to everyone, so I hope you go out and buy it and read it. And thanks to everyone who joined in and the questions that people asked.
Thank you, everyone, for turning up, and thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
See you later. Bye.